Hi everyone, Mike Stuchiner, Master Herbalist here. And as always, I'm with my main man here, sidekick, co-host, the Mike Stuchiner Master Herbalist Hour. Bones, the boner. Okay, so let me give you a warning about today's video. If you are touchy or sensitive about anything, don't watch this video. There are things in here you might feel offended by, maybe not, I don't know. So I'm just throwing out the warning. It's here, it'll be in the description. That's it. So today's video is, even though it's not directly about herbal medicine, it is actually related to the whole concept behind it, okay? And just to give you a little bit of background on this, if you were to read the description of one of my original videos, which is sort of like an introduction to my channel, I talk a little bit about, or I write, a little bit about in the main description about my background as an herbalist. And one of the things I talk a lot about is that I have a lot of experience doing international travel. I've traveled to many, many countries all over the world. And today's topic of conversation is directly about what I've learned about this concept of community, okay? If you go on YouTube or you go really to a lot of different places all over the world, one of the things that I find to be a very dominating scenario is this concept and idea about community. You have the vegan community, you got the carnivore community, you got the LGBTQ community, and I mean, it just goes on. You got the van life community, you got camping communities. I mean, it's forever and forever and forever. There's so many goddamn fucking communities, it's ridiculous. But here's the thing about communities, okay? When we look at the Western world, America, the one thing a lot of these communities ironically have in common is that the people within the community tear each other from limb to limb. You don't even have to watch more than, let's say, 10 videos on from the vegan community or from the carnivore community or from the van life community or from the LGBT community, and you will see, I couldn't even repeat that if I tried. The reality is you'll see people tearing each other apart within their own community. And what I thought I'd do in today's video is I'd bring a little bit of a different perspective as someone who's done a lot of traveling in my life, who spent a lot of time in local markets of these different places, speaking to locals, eating a lot of their traditional foods, taking traditional plant medicines of those countries, spending a lot of time with shamans, elders, different tribes, and whatnot. And I believe I have a very good understanding of what it really means to be a true community, because I think what you often see on YouTube and what you often see in America just in general is this, what you would call this fake idea of what a real community is. And I think what really should be explained is, it's not that like the vegan and the carnivore and the LGBT and the van life and all these other communities, it's not that people don't mean well and go in with good intentions. It just often doesn't seem to always end well. I mean, it's almost comical to watch some of these videos on YouTube or wherever you're watching your videos today, and seeing some of this stuff, because people are literally, because of a slight difference in opinion, people are literally tearing each other apart. And these are all people who are supposed to be within a community that cares about each other and wants to have each other's back and wants to, take care of one another. That's kind of the opposite of what a community is, what people are doing on YouTube, basically. So what I did was I put together a list. And yeah, I have some cheat notes today, which is pretty unusual for me, but I don't care, because I put together what I consider a pretty good list of things that I learned from all my travels to these different places and being able to have the amazing experiences I have, and more to come, I hope, as things become a little more normal with travel again. So I'm going to go over those and kind of throw them out there and see what you all think. All right? So number one is traditions are essential. Okay? So this is how, when I talk about traditions of a community, this is how we learn to keep a culture alive. Traditions are really important when you're talking about the culture of a community, okay? And while progress is necessary and evolution of these traditions are necessary, the core fundamentals of these traditions never really change. They are what pulls a community together. FYI warning, okay? Many of these are going to sound like they're overlapping, or it might be a little bit repetitive, but I'm really trying to get many important points across. So you'll forgive me if it seems a little bit repetitive or things are strongly overlapping with one another, okay? So an example of when I talk about this idea of keeping the basic traditions alive is examples like a tribe that teaches each other how to hunt or gather and survive. Because traditions, when you go to some of these other countries, this is not just about catfighting and logistics. This is really about, in many of those cases, survival, okay? And how that kind of overlaps and relates to what we see here in the YouTube communities is it's survival of the community is how it relates to this situation. It's survival in the fact that if a community wants to stay alive, if a community wants to have a strong, domineering presence in order to be able to continue to evolve and make progress, then you have to have fundamental traditions that can never be broken, okay? They can evolve, they can get better as time goes along. I guess you might say a silly thing would be maybe traditions with how we cook and using better quality ingredients than maybe what they used to, or something of that nature. But another example of this, if we want to pull into more modern Western society, would be to say, let's look at Italian families and Jewish families. Now, I'm Jewish, and I grew up in a fairly traditional Jewish family, but I had some Italian friends who every Sunday it was macaroni and gravy at grandma's house. These are wonderful traditions that need to stay alive. These are things that as we get older, and if we choose to get married and have children, that we want to pass on those traditions to our children, and so on and so on. I mean, if you ask a true Italian person about their macaroni and gravy, the reality is that it's probably their grandmother's recipe that was passed on to their mom, or even their great-grandmother's recipe given to their mom. Given to their grandmother, which was given to their mom, which was given to them. And that's just a beautiful tradition. And that's why these simple fundamental traditions are essential, literally are essential, not just to keeping a community together, but again, when you look at other countries, survival, okay? So number two. Number two is really very predominant when we talk about what are known as blue zones, where people are living to be in their mid to upper 90s, even well into their hundreds, like 105, 110, and there's a very large population of it, and that is to respect the knowledge and the wisdom of the elders. Okay? You know, you go anywhere in the continent of Africa, and where there are traditional African tribes. The truth is, the elders are the smartest ones. And the reason why they're the smartest ones is because they have experience that no one else has. You know why they have that experience? Because if you're 100 years old and everyone else in your tribe is 70, 60, 40, 20, 10, they're not 100 years old. They haven't lived 100 years. They haven't seen what you've seen. They haven't gone through what you've gone through. That doesn't mean that they know everything. But what it does mean is that they have a certain wisdom and knowledge about life in general, that there's precious and valuable lessons. I can't tell you how many times I thought to myself, when I go through my day or I go through my life, each day I say, you know, that's what my grandfather would have said, or that's what my dad used to tell me, or so on and so forth. You'd be very, very surprised how much that stuff will stick in your head long after your loved ones are gone, from, you know, your parents, your grandparents, and if you were, I guess, were lucky enough to know your great-grandparents, your great-grandparents, and so on and so forth, okay? Again, in that particular scenario, the elders may not be the most educated in terms of book smarts, but what they are is their knowledge on life is something that you cannot get unless you've lived to that age. You don't know what it's like to be 90 until you get to be 90. You can say all you want about the fact that, oh, well, you know, I can imagine what I'm going to be like at 90. You don't know shit about it. Until you've been there and until you've lived that 90 years, you don't know a goddamn thing about it, okay? So this is where I'm talking about people being a little sensitive. I know that everyone thinks that they're right about everything, and I usually am, ironically. But the thing that has to be really understood here is that the elders have knowledge and wisdom. And what I found is you don't tend to find that attitude in the good old US of A. Where you tend to find that attitude and that respect for elders is in places where you have tribes, where you have traditions. You know, over in Europe, Italy, Rome, places like Okinawa, Japan, Peru, Costa Rica, in South America. These are places where family take care of each other, people take care of each other. That's what community really is. It's not about having to agree on everything. It's about being able to take care of each other. So, number 3 is, hey, I even just said it before. Look at this. You don't have to agree with everyone, with everything that everyone says in order to love and care about someone. I'm going to say that again, just in case you didn't hear it the first time. Okay? So, clean your ears out, shut your ego off, and listen. That's the switch. That's the ego switch. See, I'll do it again. Okay. You don't have to agree with everything everyone says in order to love and care about someone. Okay? I'm not even going to go into that because I think that message is very clear. And if you don't get it, do me a favor. Shut the fucking video off because you don't belong listening to the rest of it. All right? In regards to that, I will say one other thing, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. What holds a community together is that they have the same foundational, fundamental beliefs, okay? They have the same core values. You can have the same core values and not agree on everything. But again, you still have to have those same beliefs and core values. An example, okay? Let's take the carnivore community. I've seen maybe 6 or 7 videos over like a 3-year period about the carnivore community or about the vegan community, okay? The vegan community is way more entertaining because these people just rip each other apart. It is fucking hilarious how dumb they are. But when we talk about, for example, the carnivore community, there are people that believe that if you're a true carnivore, you eat nothing but animal products, the meats, nose to tail, bones, eggs, things like that, okay? And if, God forbid, you eat one vegetable on your plate, you are going to burn in the pits of fucking hell, okay? And that's where people disagree in that community about ridiculous nonsense, okay? Here's the thing you have to understand. If everyone in that community has the same fundamental belief that it is the core diet of nose to tail eating, then nothing else matters. If people want to throw some vegetables in their diet, great. They want to throw some fruit in their diet, great. Who gives a shit? It means nothing. The reality is that if you have the same fundamental belief that you're eating some form of a nose to tail diet, nothing else really matters. You have the fundamental belief you can be a happy community that takes care of each other. Okay? The next thing is, while it is essential for the younger generation to help the community to evolve and to make progress, you must never lose basic traditions of who you are and where you came from. If you lose those fundamental things that make you who you are, that you take pride in, that you talk to people about, the reality is you're going to tear the community apart. I see it with my eyes. What I saw with my own 2 eyes is that whether it was a 100-year-old elder in a tribe or a 12-year-old child in a tribe, okay, they all had the same fundamental belief in what they do and where they come from. They take such pride in their traditions, okay? So there's nothing wrong. I guess the rule here is, or the lesson is that there's nothing wrong with making progress, because in a way, in order for the next generation to push it forward, you have to make a little progress. You have to evolve with those traditions. But the point I'm making is that you don't have to ever lose the fundamental principles of it, okay? So here's an example. Let's say Sunday dinner, grandma's gravy and macaroni, okay? Let's say that's every Sunday, all right? And it used to be at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And now it's at 6:30 because some of the people in your family work on Sundays. You want to know something? People will get over that. The tradition of grandma's macaroni and gravy and the family being together on Sunday is what matters. The time frame, not so much. Okay? So it's okay to show a little progress. There's no problem with that. It's just the idea of understanding that you don't want to lose the principles behind that, okay? Now, I wanted, staying with this one concept, I want to discuss something that's really interesting. So, I don't know how many people are aware of this, but the city of Salt Lake City, or the surrounding areas near the city of Salt Lake City, has probably one of the largest Polynesian communities anywhere in the United States. And I've spent time there, and I can tell you that it really, it came as a huge surprise to me when I learned the fact that there is such a tremendous Polynesian community. And the way I learned this is because as a kava drinker and someone who loves a traditional kava bar, I found out about this wonderful kava bar in the West Valley, and I did a video about it, and it was just it was a wonderful surprise to find out that there's a tremendous Polynesian community in that area, and it's wonderful to see how they care about each other and they support each other, okay? And again, not everybody agrees on everything, but they understand the importance of keeping community together, and that in order to do that, sacrifices have to be made on both people's opinions. There's always some form of a middle ground on these scenarios, okay? So recently, I had the privilege of being invited to what is known as a traditional Samoan, as compared to, let's say, a traditional Tongan or traditional Fijian kava ceremony, okay? One of the people in the community had been voted into a higher position in government as a representative of the local Polynesian community. And to honor that man, they did a traditional kava ceremony for him, okay? And one of the things when you have the privilege of watching such a wonderful thing as I had the privilege of doing, one of the things you know is that this is a community that no matter what happens, they have each other's back, they back each other, they support each other. They don't always agree on everything, but in the end, they understand what brings them together is their core belief that tradition and community is what keeps everything strong. Okay? Next, this is obvious, especially in the times we're living in, especially in all over the world, what we're seeing. Without rules, there's chaos. Turn on your TV, folks. Take a look around you. It's going on all over the world. Canada, Australia, Europe, the UK, here in the good old US of A, in all major cities. Without some level of rules, without the basic fundamental belief in sanctity, in bringing people together, all you end up with is chaos. How many months did this go on with the looting and the rioting and all the other stuff? Or, I apologize to the sensitive ones, the mostly peaceful protest. Kind of like being mostly pregnant, right? Same idea. I won't continue on with that. That's obvious, okay? And I think the last one I would probably say on my list here is, and I've said it probably 20 times, but I'm going to say it 21 times, okay? It's okay for opinions to vary. It's okay to have your own thoughts and your own opinions within a community, okay? But as long as you have the same belief and the same values, most of the opinions in the end are really not very relevant. They're only about you thinking of your own needs versus thinking of the community as a whole, okay? You want to keep a community together? Both sides of the fence make a level of sacrifice in order to do that. Those are all the things I've mentioned on my list here, folks, are all the things I learned from traveling to so many different countries, going to traditional markets, eating traditional foods, talking to locals. I wasn't really a tourist when I went to these places. I had a guide, and I just went and I had an exciting adventure. And I really got to dig into the culture and the environment of all these different places, okay? And the reality is that all of these things that I'm talking about today are the reasons why in those other places, in those other countries, whether it's the traditional African tribe, the traditional Native American tribes, the Peruvian tribes, it doesn't matter, or just the communities in all these different places, whether you go to Italy, Rome, Greece, it doesn't matter. Every Sunday they eat together. In some places, every night the family gets together to eat. Okay? It's these traditions that make a community what it is. So I hope this was an interesting video for you folks. I hope you all enjoyed it. And this is Mike Stuchiner, Master Herbalist, International Traveler, and all over groovy guy signing out. Bones, signing out. We'll see you next time.